puzzle. Does everyone know this puzzle? Everybody? So the idea is you start with a ship, right? I'll just make it kind of a pretty simple program. It's just composed of planks. Okay, so there it is. It's a bunch of planks. And then what you do is over time, you take out a plank and you replace it with a new one at a time. So like to show it was a different plank, I'll color it in. So it's not the same plank. Thing every time. But you see, you're going to then, over time, replace them one at a time. And the old planks you're going to just leave in a pile here. So you just make a big pile of the old planks. And now, after a while, you replace everything, every plank in the ships. And now it's all got these dark-colored planks. And let's suppose, though, at the later time that you took the pile of old planks and you put numbers on them to remember exactly which one and where. You reconstruct the size and you reconstruct the original ship, it seems, out of the old planks. And so now at this later time we have two ships, right? So you've got the idea. One ship is what you got from starting from the original ship and replacing planks one at a time. So it doesn't share any planks in common with the original ship. And then you have another ship which we just created out of the old planks, which has all the parts in common with the original ship, but it's not connected in any continuous way to the original ship. I mean, it didn't even exist in the time except the original ship. And now the question is, which of these two ships sitting in the harbor is the original ship? Now, the reason it's a problem is because if I didn't do both at the same time, you wouldn't have doubted that this was the original ship, right? You can replace things. I mean, your body has replaced every molecule over its life, and you're still the same person, the same body. You can replace the parts of things one at a time. You do it slowly, continuously, and we say it's still the same object. Right? So there'd be no reason if we just replaced the planks to say it's a different ship. Where did it stop being the original ship? I mean, you never could change it more than one plank at a time. On the other hand, you can take something apart and put it back together and still say it's the original ship. When I want to fix my watch, maybe I'll take it all apart. And for a while, there's no watch, right? It's just parts. And I put it back together, and now I have my watch back. It's the same watch, right? So that gives you reason to say, if I had only done this, taken it apart, put it back together, this would be the same object. But when you do both, now we have a contradiction because, if I call this one A and this ship in the harbor B and this C, well, B is not equal to C because they're different ships, right? So if I say A is identical to B and A is identical to C, I have a contradiction. Identity can't work that way. I can't have one thing be identical to now, you got into this problem because you thought that A was literally identical to B. That's how you get the contradiction. But on the temporal parts view, that's not really the case, right? This is a different temporal part from this. If I'm just focusing on the temporal parts, there is no identity. So there's no contradiction in saying I have two different continuous objects. There's this one, and then there's this one that overlap. They had the same first temporal part, but then they differed after that. And so there's really no contradiction in saying I have two ships in the harbor, each of which has parts which have the appropriate ship, identity relation to the original ship. It's still the case we can't say that each ship is identical to the other. But the solution here is to no longer talk in terms of identity, because that's not literally what's going on. And then we no longer have a problem. Well, that doesn't mean we might not, and somebody might go to court, and say, this is my ship, if I have a lawsuit, I want my ship back or something. the courts will have to decide, you know, one of these has a more legitimate claim to be a future successor of this than the other. So we might make conventional decisions, but what I was saying, how this helps in this problem, is there's no reason to think it wouldn't just be a conventional decision. There's no fact of the matter that there's no identity fact that we're trying to decide to discover here. We're just making a conventional decision about which we think has a better claim. Or we might just say it's totally indeterminate. There's no answer at all, and no reason to go one way or the other. And that's consistent. So there are these puzzles about identity over time, like the ship of Theseus, or just any kind of case where one thing divides into two, you know, and so-called fission cases. And they're very puzzling if you think that a continuing object over time is one thing that's wholly present at all the different stages. Then you just get contradictions. But if you think of it, a continuing object as a sum of temporal parts, you don't have any contradictions at all. So this is another reason to favor four-dimensionalism, which has solved all kinds of other problems. The changes I've presented, but puzzles about identity. Yeah.
So what's like the main reason why people don't accept four-dimensionalism? The arguments against
that is a good question. I think that people just have this strong intuition that they cannot be just a sum of distinct stages. That there's got to be some more literal sense in which, as you persist over time, that it's got to be literally the very same thing. There's got to be something, at least like a view about a soul or something, that underlies all the different stages. One unique thing that can't be divided. And I mean, there's obviously some religious background to that, but I think some people just, their intuitions about what they are and what object they just don't allow them to accept it. Now, I could also say there are philosophical arguments, but I think they can all be dealt with, and I'm probably not going to go into those two. I mean, obviously, these issues go back and forth on the critical authors. I'll just give you a kind of simple example. So suppose I want to say that I think I am just a sum of these stages, of these temporal parts that exist at these times. Then by Leibniz's law, the same, and this is the kind of argument they use a lot, then any property of the stages would have to be a property that I have. So any property of the sum of temporal parts would have to be a property that I have, and vice versa, if we're going to accept four-dimensional speech. But now, when you consider modal properties, I could have lived longer than I did. So it's modal, because that's the could. So one of the property that I have, I'm going to die at a certain time, but presumably I could have lived longer. But these people argue, but now consider just the sum of stages. To say the sum of stages could have been longer than it is, they say doesn't make sense. So the property of could have lived longer applies to me, but doesn't apply to the sum of stages, or sum of parts. And so they'll say that shows that I'm not identical to that sum of stages. I can't be identified with. Like this is a style of argument that the people who are on that side of the debate use over and over again. There are issues about constitution, about whether the statue is identical to the lump of clay it's made out of, and there's a whole series of arguments where one side always wants to say they can't be identical because they have different modal properties, like Leibniz's law. And the other side, like me, say that that's not a good argument because when you really understand how modal properties work and how to understand them, you see there isn't really any contradiction. So that's just a hint of that there are sort of at a more philosophical level debates going on about this issue. It's not just intuition. But in the end, I think that the philosophical arguments people give are meant to justify the intuitions they have. And so I think at bottom the debate really is because some people just have an intuition. When I started the lecture, that was literally me. It wasn't just some other part, that's different. It had to be me that was there, in some literal sense. That's just an intuition they have. And maybe we all start with that way of thinking, but I think we can learn to think in this other way, and I think there are good reasons to do so. Well, thank you. It was fun. So, if you want to do more metaphysics, there are classes to take.
Right then.
Teaching any next semester?